And here we are once again. It's Thursday, and I thought we were going to have our normal show until Elaine said, "Hey, I want to talk about this." It's like, oh, if we talk about this, we're going to be talking shop most of this show because it's not a simple news media type deal to just talk about. It's something that is readily in the wheelhouse of both her, myself, and a lot of people who watch the show. It's in the wheelhouse of a lot of the former, I shouldn't say former members who and panelists who have been on Comic Book Spectrum before, and it is worthwhile to talk about it. You muted yourself again. You muted yourself.
It muted me and then did not turn my sound back on when it stopped the thing. It automatically mutes me when you run the thing.
Mhm.
Anyway, this not just affects us in the audience and those of us who are currently hosting and have hosted in the past. This affects the comic book community as a whole. Because three editors from Marvel are gone, including.
Wait. Introduce it. Let's introduce it properly because we got
Okay.
a couple articles that we have to I'm one of these people who's a stickler for verification, and when Elaine brought it up to me today, I was like, it really wasn't on my radar to talk about on this show, and I was thinking about it for Saturday. Then I was like, nope, let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead
Oh,
and do it.
see,
That's
if
why I
you'd
was
have told
asking
me
for
you were,
sources and everything.
I'm sorry, if you'd have told me you were going to do this on Saturday, I would have cut my mouth shut.
No, I was thinking about it. Thinking about it and doing it are two different things.
You know, Disney, because the mouse has gotten, I don't know what cheese the mouse is getting into, but it has messed up its brain. Disney has gone retarded. Um, and I guess Marvel did not learn from Pixar because this was some crap Disney tried to pull with Pixar way back in the day. And Pixar was like, you know what? We'll just bounce because there's a whole bunch of people that want what we got. And they prepared to bounce. And then the guys at Disney went, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, you gonna bounce because Universal, the minute other studios, Universal, Paramount, and stuff started hearing that, they were like, woo, Pixar? It's like a date. You dating this chick, she's a hot chick, and you think, well, dang, you ain't nothing without me. And she's like, baby, everybody wants some of what this is.
High school. I want
and
to think about high school. It's like,
it is
let's
very,
just broke up with whom?
and
I
big.
want it. I want it. I want it. I'm about to get myself together. I'm about to go holler at her.
Oh, and they hadn't even pulled out, and Paramount and them were all folks were already calling, going, "Hey, what? We got stuff that they got, and you be our main thing. We will treat you right." And Disney went back and said, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Won't do it again." And Pixar then started making demands that Disney had to bend to, but they have not bothered, they haven't bothered Pixar since. I don't
But
know
we got two
why.
articles, one from Forbes and one from Variety.
Okay, I saw for the Forbes, I saw a bit of variety that they were, when you're trying to get into it, they kept throwing ads at me, and it's like, you know what, I ain't got time for you. But I also, and I know I went to Bleeding Cool as well as because I went to a few sources. I went to Bleeding Cool as well as comic books. Um, there's
Dot
another comic book
comicbooks.com or something like that. And
yeah,
the reason I don't use
comic yeah, comic books news or something like that.
right, the reason I
So
don't use those two sites is because they tend to be a bit clickbaitish with some of their information. Not with all, but with some, they tend to be very clickbaitish. So I take it with a grain of salt here. I know Forbes won't lead us wrong. I know Variety won't lead us wrong per se.
yeah, because Josh DeMao, who is CEO of Disney, did confirm 1,000 people from Marvel Entertainment, and Marvel Studios. No, Marvel Productions, Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Productions are gone, including folks working in the comic book division.
Hmm.
Them Timothy Chang, Cheng, who is, hold on, let me make sure I get the name. He is the executive director of communications. He's leaving. David Gabriel, senior VP of print sales and marketing. After 23 years at
We
Marvel,
need to
he
go,
is
but
also leaving.
I'll get to that a little bit later.
And I get it, but the thing is they also, a lot of the folks who have worked on the Daredevil TV shows, the Marvel movies, the Avengers, and all of that. Guess what? They're kicking off a lot of the artists and illustrators who worked on those films and those TV shows. And what they're telling them is well, when we need you, we'll have you come in not as employees but contractors.
That's what that was the what the Variety article was saying here.
Yeah.
Now
So they're,
this one
but
was
the,
just saying that there was just a transition to full time to contractors, but Variety really got into the crux of
yeah,
how it's
they're not
working.
employees. So whatever benefits they were getting as employees of Marvel, that's gone. And contract work means we only need, if we only need you to work on XYZ for these many weeks, that's all you're going to get paid for. Okay?
So you didn't mention
I'm get,
Isaac
I didn't
Perlmutter, the chairman of Marvel Entertainment. That's the comic book arm. He's gone.
yeah, you know. Um what gets me is because you know what I do.
Uh-huh.
3 editors that I know of are gone at Marvels. One of them is a woman. Senior editors Lauren Bison and Darren Shaw are gone. As well as, and this is what gets me, because it's like I don't know what they were smoking, but somebody needs a, I'm gonna say it, somebody just needs a foot up their ass. Because Enrique Johnston of Bleeding Cool did confirm that among the people fired, one of the editors was Devin Lewis. And if you want to know who that was, he was the editor on on the recent Daredevil, the one that sold 300,000 copies. They fired him, okay? Because they're not contracting the comic book guys. The movie and animated and TV show people can come in as contractors. Those editors, they're gone. Okay, they're not contracting the comic book folks. They're contracting the movie and TV division. But the comic book folks, when they leave, they're gone. How do you kick out a man who just turned a book that made 300,000 damn copies?
That's sold. You mean
Okay,
sold, not made, sold.
so 300 damn copies. Okay, and then like, well, he need to go. No, bitch, he should have stayed. Senior editors, you don't kick out senior editors. You shouldn't kick out any editors, but you
Well,
definitely don't let your senior staff go.
that's what makes this whole thing quite messy. This is the reason why I up here when you said Gabriel got kicked to
Yeah,
the curb,
David
because
Gabriel.
some of the people who, if I was in charge of this layoff, most of my marketing staff for Marvel print would have been laid off. The books are not selling at a level that is productive and conducive to what the fans want. We only got you only can one, you know, lower level vice president. One. Only one. So you saying the rest of the marketing staff is safe?
No, they're not, because
Fine.
he's a senior VP. So this isn't a low-level vice president. This dude is a senior VP. Timothy Chang is the executive director of communications.
No, that's communication. I'm talking about marketing. That was
Okay.
that was one of the lower. I'm trying to be very specific about this. Nothing against Gabriel directly, but a lot of the problems that I foresee, especially on the print side, is that the marketing department has been overly focused on things that they shouldn't be. And then this also leads to your whole editor's argument. Marketing has a tendency to contradict what what their editors are trying to tell them story wise.
Yeah. And then what you do though is you sit down with those groups and you say, hey, in this regard, while the book is in production, it's in production. Let the production people manage the production. Your job is to sell the finished product, not to dictate what that finished product is. That's a different conversation than, well, I'm just going to fire your ass. That's that because that A, whoever is under him that's left, you haven't, when you've just fired them, you haven't met with anybody. It's not saying whether they're pulling whoever's left in and saying, hey, you know what? Because they fired editors. So you can say, yeah, the marketing is at fault for this, but then they fired senior editors.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna blame you, even though we know the marketing team because that's who we're pushing. Because that's how they push it at Disney in regards to production. We know that. But we're going to fire you because, well, we gave the marketers too much power. Instead of saying, you know what, y'all need to back the hell up and let the editors go. Let the editors do what editors are supposed to do. And we'll see. That's what I'm saying. Whatever cheese they're eating, the mouse's brain has molded. Because the smart thing to do would say, you know what? Maybe we should cut some of that marketing crew down, but you don't take the top person and go, hello, bye, and say, okay, editors, the next 3 to 6 months, let's see how it comes when you guys have the comp. Let us just see what books we're putting out. And then within a year or so, if the books aren't improving, then you can say, okay, maybe the editorial team, maybe we need to get some different people or something. But to just wholesale start kicking people out the door, that's not going to make better comics. And even if you tried to say, well, we'll slip over here at DC, or we'll slip over here at Dark Horse or Image and get somebody to replace these three, especially if they're looking like Image or Dark Horse, because maybe they're not paying that Marvel salary. If I'm over there and they're coming, oh, we want to get you this, like, nah, because I see what other dude did, 300,000 copies and you kicked his butt to the curb. No, I don't trust you. I know what you do. I've been connected enough within the industry, even at the outer edges, to say, no, the mouse does not behave. The minute they got leverage, they start screwing folks.
This is where I want to kind of remind you, because we're both former military.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old saying about shit rolling downhill and who catch the most of it.
But the thing is,
it's not, and the thing about it, it's not. My problem here is that what happened with the editors is, if I could say, collateral damage to what marketing did. Now, reason I say collateral damage is because there's two things that editors in this modern day of printing comics have to be weary of, especially at a outfit like the Mouse. One, you're good at your job. You're good at controlling a creative staff and making certain you're hitting deadlines. And two, you are at least on projects that are hitting whatever quote unquote benchmarks as far as what the mouse want to put out there.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I complain more about the marketing than the editors here. Marketing would do all of this research, market research, and saying we need this, and this. Go to senior editor. We want this. Senior editor would look at it and be like, "This is a bunch of crap. This will not sell any books. We cannot write a story of this magnitude without ruining something about the character or the mythos." So with a lot of your senior editors, they will look at that type of stuff and be like, screw this. We want to do what we got to do to put out books that actually sell. When it comes to the end of the day, when you have your shareholders and stuff here and you have a change in the top leadership, which they did here, and they're coming in and be like, I'm going to cut, I'm going to slash the budget. I'm going to do what I got to do for you shareholders to make your money.
The problem
They're
with
not
that
looking at who is right and who is wrong. They're going to look at, did they hit these certain benchmarks? Did they hit these certain metrics? And a lot of those senior editors who have been in the business, who are selling a lot of these books, who are making certain that these titles are being done correctly, they're next going to be on the chopping block regardless, because it's not what the direction of shareholders and the people who control the money wants to go in.
Which to me, as I said, the mouse is fucking crazy. Why? Because this is a company that was built on its printed material, the comic books. If you don't understand an industry, either take time to learn it inside out or leave it the hell alone, because what they're doing is going to kill Marvel.
I hate to say it in these terms, but if you remember the line from, why do I have to use that as an analogy? Because I hate using it as an analogy here. Fist of the North Star.
Oh wow, you got way.
You're already. It's like was that supposed to hurt? No, you're already dead.
You know they're going to keep the
mythos, the branding of Marvel was dead when the mouse bought them. Same thing with Star Wars. The reason being is the mouse does not care about what was established before. The mouse only want the branding for they can merchandise the hell out of it. And that's the real problem.
Yeah, that is very sad, because it's like you're not thinking about, if you're lucky, if they're lucky, they get a Loki situation where you have an actor with enough pull because he knows he's got the audience behind him who will say, hey, this is how this series needs to go if you want a series that's going to be a hit.
Well, it's not just about the series being a hit. They could market the hell out of Hiddleston. Once he hit that benchmark, they can market the hell out of him as Loki. Everything would have his face as Loki from that point forward until they find somebody else that could reach a higher benchmark than him.
Yeah, the minute he stepped out on that stage at Comic-Con, dressed as Loki and addressed the crowd, it was like, oh, okay, we can't just treat him as a and character. This man is establishing that situation. We have to think about how we're going to handle this. But what I'm saying is, if you're lucky, you get one of those. They have a lot of other series where you don't have someone, and also that's part of his commitment to what he does as an actor, what he believes in as a storyteller. He gets it. It's not just my face that's on the camera that moves this story and makes it worth watching and paying attention to. You're lucky because he's the type that he gets that. And when he goes into something, he's working from that point of view. You know, what what Disney has done. I'm sorry, Disney, y'all need to be ashamed. Y'all need to be ashamed. And I know what I think will not matter. But you know what? There may be somebody who hears this, sees this, who knows other people. Eventually, because the thing is, y'all are making this immediate gain without thinking of the long term investment. And that is the problem. They're thinking of, oh, this big shiny toy will make us money right now. And then when it ceases to make us money, we'll toss it aside and find the next shiny toy. The problem is, other creators are sitting there watching. And eventually, yeah, you might get some who are just in it for the shekels, but the majority of the ones who are putting their stuff out there because they care, they're going to go, no, we saw what you did. And you know what? They'll pay us less money, but we'll have more control and we'll make a better product. And in the long term, we'll survive. Because I don't see Disney anymore as a studio. They have the amusement, they have the theme parks, but they've become basically just a clearinghouse because
I
they them
don't know.
I don't
I wouldn't put it that way. I see Disney as a mega conglomerate
they're a
only because
clearinghouse
of the
because
rumors.
they Disney themselves isn't making much outside of what you see on the Disney Channel. They have some small teams working on things like Chippendale's Park Life and a few other animated and live action series. But, you know, they themselves are not really producing much. They are now just sort of, oh, we see that's over there. Let's snatch it and bleed it, suck it dry.
I wouldn't say back, but you're close. You're close. People keep forgetting that Disney owns much of ABC, ESPN, all of these other networks. They have IPs until they're blue in the face.
But Disney
They,
itself is not producing anything. These are other people's IPs that they've snatched up. Okay,
you'd be surprised that Disney is producing original
ABC
content,
before they're not.
but
If
they're
you
not
think
but, not, but they're not putting it out there for, like you said, they're not putting it out there on the big screen. They're not putting it out there on broadcast television. You got
when
small
you
little pockets where you might get a Disney original and they
their
last
out,
that long.
it used to be Disney's output was this, and their
Mm-hmm.
ancillary was that. Now Disney's ancillary is this, and their output is that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it it's like a vampire. It's
It's
like
not
a
even
vampire.
vampiric. It's
You know,
beyond vampiric because how do you keep your original IPs alive?
you know. And
Really,
part of the
really,
problem is
really, that Batman. How do you keep
a
your
lot
original
of their
IPs
original
alive?
IPs are in trouble because there are IPs coming up on their centennials, and they're having problems. They've already got people. The minute Steamboat Willie lost its copyright, everybody and his mama was on top of that, going, "Ooh, let me see what I can do with this." And I get it. In many ways, they're scared. The thing is hiring a bunch of people who have no creative soul, who don't know what it is to make things. Okay, Walt at least had some idea of what it took to create, and then set about getting other creatives. He had vision. The Mao doesn't have vision. He's just got stockholders to appease. You know,
It's called getting too big for your own britches.
I see
There's
them.
a couple of things that I could tell you right now where I see where the mouse has failed. One, they never truly created any real IPs other than a handful. And I could say a handful, I could count maybe on like two hands of IPs that Disney did that would have been evergreen, that they could continue on making new and newer and newer and newer episodes of. The first couple ones that I could think of off the top of my head: DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, High School the Musical.
They do the
You
what
know,
is it? The monster thingy, the monster teens. Courtney, please help me. Brain shutting down, fogging out. What's that? The Monster High. Okay, thank you. The Monster High thing. And every once in a while they'll fart out on Monster High. They'll fart out on Monster High stuff thingy. But like I said, their output is like this. They had great IPs. Their
mhm.
children between what at Disney Afternoon, they had um they had gargoyles.
They
All
had
they had to do was
they had
not screw it. All they had to do was trust the production team and trust the people that they took on to do this. And that would probably, they could have gotten a good 10 years out of Gargoyle alone. Like you said, Chippendale's Rescue Rangers,
DuckTales.
DuckTales, Darkwing Duck. They had the IPs. The only people who
And
could have
the
challenged them were kids was Spielberg because they were putting out good stuff, but it was a balance. It was a good balance. That's the whole point. Each of them working at such a level to make sure that the other one was staying at the top of their game. And then for some reason, Disney just screwed the damn pooch.
they didn't screw the damn pooch. They got greedy because they saw what their IPs could make in other people's hand when they bought licensing.
And they screwed the pooch.
That's where it really boils down to, because and you have been on shows where I have, or seen shows where I have talked about Darkwing Duck and what Dynamite has did with them, and it's like, and they re-released DuckTales, and they went back to like the Carl Barks days of like Donald and all of them, and they redid the DuckTales and did a great job with it. They
So they didn't.
reintroduced Darkwing Duck to fit this modern day scenario. I was
So
like, they had something that was evergreen, and they just like, nope, this is a one-time thing, this, that, and the other. We don't care about the overall output, we don't care about the ratings. They
we're
just let
just
it
gonna
die.
make well, we're gonna make what money we can make now and not worry about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just really sad. And I get it. Um, the guys, Katzenberg and whatnot, especially Katzenberg. Um, he was a prick. Let's just be honest. Katzenberg was a prick. He's the one that wrote that memo. If you don't come in on Saturday, don't bother coming in on Sunday. Um, so he was a prick. But even they understood enough to know that you need to produce something. It's not enough to get other people. You should be producing something. The house that Walt built, it's like if somehow they managed to bring back Disney's head right now, this would kill him. Because
Actually, I think he would have a different take on it. He would be angry. He would be definitely be angry because
oh,
none
he
of
would.
his stuff was preserved, and none of his stuff were maintained copyright wise. He would be mad that Steamboat Willie is in public domain. He would be pissed.
He would be pissed at that, but he would also, because it's not just it's the parks, they're not maintaining the parks as well. There's a lot of the stuff that is specifically Disney that is not being maintained and just just operated properly. It's like the guy at the helm is like snorting cocaine while dropping 150, he's drinking 150 proof vodka, snorting campaign, and has painted the windows of the car black, so even with the lights on he can't see where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as the car is moving, he thinks, well, I guess we're doing okay. It's just,
Again, he's like, as long as the shareholders happy, we're happy. And I'm
which
like,
is the problem. The shareholders are not the friggin' company. Somehow they gave too much power to the shareholders. Too much power has been, it used to be, yeah, you invested in something. If you were lucky, you made money off of it. At best, you broke even, but you didn't have a demand on how the company operated. You invested in the company because you liked what they did and you wanted to see them continue because you were investing in it. But you, as a shareholder, didn't get to walk up on the CEO and say blah blah blah. Why? Because shareholders are not the business.
mm-hmm.
We've gotten so caught up about the shareholders, we forget about what the actual businesses are, how they produce, what those industries are built on. They just want to get the money. And it's like, and the thing is, yeah, they're like vampires because they'll suck the life out of Disney. And the minute the mouse is dead, they'll go on to the next.
Mouse been dead.
You know what I mean?
The
When they have nothing, when they have
actual mouse
nothing
has been dead.
else, the actual mouse is dead. But so long as they're licensing stuff, so long as they're sucking up other entities to produce till they're dead, and then they're getting some other new entity to do it for them.
Is it okay for me to use the Wayback Machine here? I want to illustrate to people why I keep saying the mouse is dead.
Peabody
I
says
want to set the Wayback Machine back to like the early 90s.
Hold on. Beep, beep, beep. He works as a remote now.
Okay.
Beep, 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 boop. There you go.
I want to set the Wayback Machine back to the early 90s. And this is the reason why I said the mouse is dead. And that was one of the things that caught me off guard back in the 90s as like a teenager about to get ready to graduate from high school and go to college, and looking at my little cousin. My little cousin at the time, he was, he was like big into cartoons and everything, but he was a big Mickey Mouse fan. And now since we're talking about it, it's like, why was he a big Mickey Mouse fan? It wasn't the fact that Mickey Mouse had a lot of cartoons and stuff, and the Disney Channel was on its upper echelon at the time on cable networks and everything. You couldn't go too far without having a re-release on DVD or VHS. During that time, it was VHS, a re-release of VHS of the classic cartoons. They were producing toys left and right for Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
I mean, Mickey was being pushed to no end. Come to the year 2000. I think at the end of 2000 or towards the middle of the 2000, didn't Iger leave and somebody else took over?
Michael Eisner.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
Eisner left. Iger. It was
Katzenberg. They fired Katzenberg because
right.
It just became too much of a liability. But lucky for Katzenberg, he had come up with Spielberg and Geffen, and they then did. But
there was somebody else that had no idea of the business, none. I can't think of his name. because I know if it wasn't Eisenberg, it wasn't
Eisner,
Iger, and it wasn't
yeah,
Iger because Iger came back to save Disney.
yeah. Eisner, at least he had a vision for
Hmm.
Disney as a production because, and Eisner during Eisner's purview, they were still doing the Wonderful World of Disney because he
Hmm.
continued the tradition of just like Walt. He was introducing episodes and talking about it and doing the behind the scenes tours. So
Hmm.
Eisner at least was trying to work to keep the company alive. And
I'm
he had
trying,
more respect for what it took to make this stuff.
but
Once
there was
he was gone, it seemed that they got people from the marketing division who have never bothered to make anything. Eisner wasn't a creative, but he came up in the business and he hung around creatives. And I think around that time, they were still on the Disney model of you have to come up, you didn't just get popped in, you had
right,
to work through the
work your
department.
way all the way up here.
You had
But I
internships
can't remember the CEO that came in between. There was a couple CEOs that came in
and they
between
screwed up
Eisner and
horribly.
Iger
Yeah,
that
and
ruined the model,
yeah.
and it almost put Iger up under the bus where Iger left, and he had to come back because of what Katzenberg did.
Well, the Mao is there now. And he hasn't even, I don't think he's even been there a year. And his is like, we'll
Right.
just fire everyone at
And,
Marvel.
and this was after the fact that Iger said, enough is enough. I'm ready to find somebody who is big enough where we could sell this to, where we could get out from up under this.
Yeah.
That's what
Because
Iger's final plan was. And I
I
was like,
think
I'm looking
under,
at that. I was like, it's brilliant, but it hurts everybody in the long run. It's like you
because,
got too big for your britches. And
yeah,
it's like you just can't say it's like you can't say it's like, well, we got to find somebody bigger. It's like, no, you got to deal with the problems that you got to deal with. You just can't run away from it because of what's going on.
yeah.
And
I
he
think,
even admitted by taking on things like ABC and all these other ancillary pieces, that was the bigger problem. He admitted it that.
well, that and because it was also those deals was Disney paying those entities,
Mm-hmm.
which meant Disney spent a lot of times because you think, well, they don't have endless pockets. They got smart accountants and lawyers and bankers, and they were leveraging the hell out of their debt in order to make these acquisitions and thinking, well, we'll make this deal that'll put us in the clear, you know. Unfortunately, the problem is you get it, it's like a drug. You get that hit and it's like, woo, okay, yeah, this is working. And instead of working out what the core problems are, what the core issues are, you just keep going for that. Well, we'll keep leveraging our debt and getting, this will be the, and it's like, no, that's the problem. You keep thinking, well, we'll acquire this and that'll save us. And it's like, no, that's not what's going to save you. It may stave it off, but in order for you to keep functioning this way, you have to keep doing acquisitions, and after a while, that's all you do
You
is
can't do you
acquisitions.
can't always make acquisitions because eventually you become the evil word of monopoly.
And that was what, and it was interesting because people forget that it was in, well, was it the 50s that they started shattering. No, the end of it was in the late 60s, early 70s, because I'm thinking about United Artists used to have, I think they were one of the last studios to lose their movie houses
Mm-hmm.
because the UA Theater used to be across the street from the Chicago Theater. What is
Mm-hmm.
now the Gene Cisco Theater is what's left of the United Artists Theater. And what became that sub place, the Potbelly Stove sub Sandwich Works, used to be the State and Lake Theater. You had the Chicago Theater because it takes up a block, and then you had the State and Lake, and the United Artists Theater, and Channel 7, ABC Channel 7 was always on the upper floor above the theater. And then you had the State and Lake right by the train. And then you had the United Artists. And United Artists was like the last movie chain um, that had a theater. The only other theater that had a Hollywood connection after that was the old Michael Todd
Mm-hmm.
theater. But because Michael Todd wasn't a big studio conglomerate of which theaters were just a part, and by that time, I think because Taylor had been married to him, I think she got what was left of his theater chain. I think Taylor got left, but his was never a huge theater chain. It was
Mm-hmm.
enough where, so long as you got movies, you could survive. But yeah, they broke up because of the whole monopoly, because indies were saying, hey, we can't get our movies out because Paramount owns this chain of theaters, United Artists owns this chain of theaters, um, you know, Warner Brothers owns this, 20th Century Fox owns that. Everybody has movie theaters, and you had very few little independent theaters. The only way to get out an independent movie was, if you were lucky, was to get it at a drive-in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were the follow-up movie to whatever the big movie that the drive-in got.
Well, I thought you was the oh goodness. I want to say it's like you were
If it
you
was a
went on
double,
first. You was the first movie in that double bill
that's
because everybody wanted to come to see the main movie at
that's
the
right.
at the
And
holiday.
they would do that. You would get on first, but people knowing that the second string film was going to be first
They came late.
came late. So, half the audience never saw that indie film because they were only there for the main event. you know but yeah, they broke up because at that point, they not I think they not only owned movie theaters, but I think some of them also owned radio stations and whatnot. They
Mm-hmm.
were really getting up there, and they were looking into getting, some of them had pieces of TV stations. And so it was, and people from an independence was like, well, that's they're making it so we can't do. And then the judges, and they got up and said, okay, that's too much power in the hands of too few people.
Mm-hmm. And
And
that would make me think about Buena Vista Television and what was going on with Disney, with Buena Vista, and the acquisitions of all of these different networks, all of these different cable channels, how they would just, it's like they were so television heavy that they were hemorrhaging money. Even
at,
when they bought Marvel and the Star Wars franchise,
they
they
were
were
they
hemorrhaging money left and right.
well, part of that is because, people got, again, you got slick lawyers who were like, an exec would say, yeah, but we can't do this because, and a lawyer and a legal team would get up and say, well, if we do it like this and this way, we come in and it's sideways, so it's not us directly, and it becomes the subsidiary that
Mm-hmm.
we own a little part of. The only problem with that is then they started getting bigger and bigger parts of the subsidiary. And now if you go to Hollywood, unless it's changed since me and mine lived there, um, Disney started buying movie theaters in
Mm-hmm.
California again. And the minute they started buying movie theaters, they bought the Landmark Theater in Los Angeles. It's a theater that sits right across, not right across, but across the street from the Man's Chinese.
But you have to also think when they started buying movie theaters, they was also buying movie studios too.
They were buying the smaller studios. Um, and because by the time anybody realized, wait, hold on, it was already too late. They had they had put enough little tendrils of stuff and come in through enough, they found loopholes in the law that they used to their advantage. And unfortunately, by the time lawmakers got wind of it, they were pretty much already in. And of course, with enough money and influence, and now we know by because of certain people's files, you get the right sort of information, you can get people to do things for you. Because you say, hey, I spoke to so and so. Here's a little picture. Or I have this tape. Or just, hey, they just said, I actually put money into this group.
Mm-hmm.
And this group gives you how much for your campaign every year? Yeah, you're going to do what I need to do. So that they found ways to do it, and the whole corporations are people too. It's like the minute they got to do that, because
Mm-hmm.
by having the courts declare corporations as people, then a lot of the laws that were regulating corporations were then wiped off the board.
Or at least not as strict.
Yeah, they were either wiped off the board or diminished to such a degree.
To say that you cannot treat the corporation that heavy handed, because now you have to look at it as a group of people instead of a business entity. Because back in the day, government could shut a whole business down and was
Yeah,
nothing you could do about it. There was nothing you could do about it.
you know, you could, they would, hey, we found out, blah blah blah. You got a choice. You can either straighten up and fly right, or fly our direction of right, or wake up tomorrow
Not
and you
no,
don't
not
have it.
not even that. It's like it would be like we found out about this. There's one or two ways we could do this here. You could go ahead, put in for your last year of service and everything. Do your final return by the end of this year. We won't go after you. You could do whatever you need to do for whatever severance packages and everything to that magnitude. Matter of fact, we might even allow you to go ahead and declare bankruptcy, where you
That
could
way
cover most of your
you just
expenses,
have to you
or
have to pay off
you do it the
debt.
hard way and we take over. We
Yeah,
take you over and we just dismantle you, and there'd be nothing left for you to claim. You can do it the easy way, or you do it the hard way. Just like the booty warrior, the choice is yours. That's how government used to do back in the day. When I think about how corporations fell in like the 70s and 80s. Now it's like because they're treating corporations like a single individual, they give them
they're also
too much leeway.
also because they're allowing corporations to put into things like APAC and other organizations that make political. Because it used to be corporations themselves could not put more, and a corporation itself couldn't put millions of dollars into a
Into anybody's
campaign,
campaign whatsoever
and couldn't put that money into the DNC or the GOP. You
directly. They can't do it directly, but they could create all
directly,
these different packs to help a certain candidate advertise and do whatever they need to do to get the word out, and yada yada yada.
you know, because that was as the part at which they started creating the PACs and stuff was also when their tax rates started going down, you know, and understand,
And we kind of get it
no
off the topic because we're
seriously
talking about
rich
Marvel. We're
person
talking
has
about
ever
Marvel. We're not.
starved to death. They have not. Okay? They have not. No rich person has ever truly starved to death. When you see those movies and oh so and so, the musical remake of what's the one they said it, um Bing Crosby and what's her name was in it. I can't even remember the original. Um they were one of the things that she talks to this one guy about is how all these rich people
Mhm.
um have lost their houses. And it's like, yeah, they lost the big houses, but they kept those swanky ass New York penthouses,
Hmm.
or the browns, or the upper, the brownstones on the upper west side. And they also kept the Southampton's homes, and all, they kept they just lost those homes in Newport News. Okay, they sold off the Newport News homes, switched as many of the staff elsewhere as they could afford, and they went and kept living to their choice of life. How do we know that? Because we see so many of their legacy people running around. So yeah, they didn't die out.
So,
They just had to cut, they had to cut back a bit. Wow, boo hoo.
well,
uh
we didn't have the so-called trading places to coming to America. Such and such in Mortimer, yeah, they lived out on the streets until a king gave them a little bit of money, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, we're back now." I mean, think about it. It's like, being, to them, being broke is not the same as us being broke, or the
no.
average person considering to be broke. Because even with, I can't even think of his names. First, the other guy's name, but him and Mortimer, the only reason why they had to live out on the streets for the way that they did was they didn't have anything liquid.
Yeah,
They were that powerful and that rich, and when they got caught up in that one, in that betrayal, they lost everything because
because
they didn't have anything
they
that
didn't
was
have the
liquid.
actual cash. Everything was tied up, and everything, it becomes what, in my day. Yeah, I'm coming for to talk about how things are different in my day. um, they used to call it, they used to refer to that situation as a house of cards.
Hmm.
And if you and they actually there actually used to be a game where you would build a house out of playing cards, and then you would, either as individuals or teams, people would take turns removing the cards. But you had to be careful, and it was, depending on how it was set up, it wasn't always the same card in the same place, because you would, if you picked the wrong card, the whole thing would come down and your side would lose. And a lot of people who were, excuse me, wealthy on paper, that's what happened. For people who don't know, in the 80s, and I'm sure, I don't know if you know about this, Joe. There was a In the 80s, there was a, they now call it a market. What is it when they say that the market adjusts, or it readjusts itself? A market
Hmm.
adjustment.
Right.
They called it Black Tuesday or whatever, or Black Sunday. There was a crash.
Oh,
There
Black Monday.
Black Monday.
It was Black Monday
There was
when
even
when people came back from a weekend and
found
there was
out
a small crash. It was always called Black Monday.
and understand, all the folks who had real money, in other words, they had physical dollars, and or they owned stuff, they didn't get hit. But you, at that time, you had a lot of yuppies, young, upwardly mobile professionals, who were working in the stock markets and coming up in law firms and stuff, and had, some of them were Ivy League, other not, but they were out there. They were making big money and stuff. In fact, Trading Places kind of jokes about those people, as well as that movie, that Baby Boom kind of jokes about that particular type of person, where you have these people getting out of college, getting into these jobs, brokerage firms and whatnot, making big money. They were the ones who lost. I actually remember reading an article. One girl was talking about, um, she didn't know where if she could keep her job in the next, not her job, but she didn't know if she didn't have enough money. She wasn't sure if she could keep her apartment
Hmm.
for more than 6 months, but she had a horse that she was stabling in Central Park. And she just, I don't know if I'll survive if I don't have my horse. It's like, baby, you need to let that horse go.
Well,
Believe me.
Well, the last black money that I remember was the crash of .com. When we had the .com crash, that was the last black money that Monday that I could remember in recent times here.
That before
That some people
then,
might actually remember, because a lot of people lost a lot of money on these startups when everybody and their grandmother could create a website and could put out ideas without having to be thoroughly vetted.
yeah, without knowing what you were doing, or really, I see advertisement for like companies like, hi, do you don't want to use your home address for your business because people will think less of you, so pay us money, and all of your mail and stuff will come with us, and we'll take pictures of it, and you can ask us to open your mail. It's like, yeah, you're talking about how embarrassing or dangerous it is to have my mail for my company come to my building.
Mhm.
Yet you're telling me you're going to securely take pictures of my mail, open my mail, tell me what's in my mail, and yet I'm supposed to trust that you're not going to take my very personal business information. You
Not just
know,
personal business information, any money that comes through.
checks, whatever. It's like, and I see if I've got YouTube on, at least within a 2 hour period, that commercial will come up about three times, 3 or 4 times. As well as I'm getting a lot of commercials for Comics Wellspring.
Well, that's because you was looking up for comic book printers, so I could see why comic
I
book
get
well.
comment. Oh my goodness, it's like Comics Wellspring. Um, Occasionally something from Ingram Spark, and then all these. You have an LLC, and it's like, please buy. As soon as I can click out of that commercial, I'm gone, because it's like, yeah, I'm going to let you photograph my mail, my packages, and whatnot, and I don't know what you've done. It's because it's like, this is more secure than a PO box. It's like, no, because in a PO box, the postal workers don't get to go in there and
And
photograph.
open anything. They don't open anything. It's like,
They
oh,
just put it in the box, and I go there once a week or so, because they're like, well, if you don't want to deal with your mail, it's something you don't want to deal with, we can just tear it up and throw it. It's like, yeah, how do I know that?
yeah.
I
It's
don't
like,
know you from Adam. I'm paying you money, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So it's like the guys who are like, yeah, pay us a couple, pay us like $50 or something a month, and we'll take your name off the dark web. It's like, yeah, most of you are companies that sold people's information to the dark web to begin with.
mhm.
Now, because people say, well, yeah, it's like this they can do it in like 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, they can do it in 5 minutes because they already know where it is. They know
Mhm.
where it is because they're the ones who put it up there. You're just paying them to take down what they already put up. So, think about that, people, please.
No, I'm just see. I'm trying not to go there because I'm trying to get us back on topic here. But I just
Oh, I'm
picture
saying,
it. I just picture it on like the mail thing that you was talking about.
oh,
You have business cards come to that so-called wannabe mailbox and everything, and then here comes some 6'5" Caucasian woman. It's like, I'm Elaine Hagen. I'm the president of Liz Captain. It's like, and then next thing you know, it's like you see, you see all these projects with your name on it and Liz Cap Production, this, that, the other. You're like, I didn't do any of that, and then
and
you
she's
see some
walking up
sister
to
over there, and you
you.
be like,
She's
you be
walking
like,
up to you and
tabby
see.
time.
Yeah, she's walking up to you and C2E2. Hey, yo, I'm here. And it's like, oh, bitch, you got to die. You not only have to die, but I have to make it spectacularly painful for you and Blady. So everybody in this room, by the time they shoot me in the head, will get the message that you don't do this. You know,
Yeah, I was like, it's like, hey, I'm here. It's like, oh, you are. I'm happy that you're here. Guess
who
what?
are you?
I got a surprise for you. Oh, what is that surprise? And it's like, what is that surprise? Elaine, meet the real Elaine.
Baby, like, oh,
And I would be in trouble because I would have filmed all of it.
did you ever see Psycho?
Yes.
No, no, what's that? You have not. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, I know they'll be knocking on my door any minute. Oh, before I forget, is it foggy where you are?
It wasn't foggy, but it been threatening off and on rain, but not
It's like a
foggy.
horror movie out there. Any minute now, the vampire zombie killer wombats will be
But
coming, rolling down
You're closer to the lake than I am, so that's the reason
the
why.
rolling down the street. I had seen the fog as I was getting ready for the night, and I went to my oldest room and knocked on the door and I said, "Have you looked out your window?" And he's in the middle of a game call with his group, and he looked out. He started yelling and screaming, and they're like, "What's wrong?" It's like the fog. You can barely see across the street. It's cleared up a little, but I don't know what it is. I like the fog. It soothes something dark inside me. And I promise next week I will either I just found some lovely anime and some other shows on Netflix. So, and if I find a good comic, I'll be reviewing stuff like
Hopefully
that.
by next week I have watched the movie that everybody wanted me to watch here for the very first time, and
Oh,
that is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
that I enjoyed it. My heart broke. The end of it, my heart broke at the end, and the end of it leads into the next Spider-Man movie that's due to come out later this year. And if you haven't seen No Way Home, um, it's kind of hard to get why
I just
things are
wish they
set
would get
for
out of
people
this
the way they
home
are.
mentality. It's like first it was Homecoming, then Far From Home, then No Way Home.
They like Simon and Garfunkel.
What's next? Spider-Man: Homebound.
They like Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, I am homeward bound. I wish I was homeward bound. Home, when my thoughts are racing. Home, where my music's playing. Home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. Yes, thank you. I'm that good. Age, age will do it. Age
You
will
say
bring things.
age, I like experience.
It'll just bring shit in your head that you thought you'd forgotten long ago.
But getting back to the topic at hand, which is the
Disney.
layoff and everything, because like I said before, I'm happy that the VP of marketing is gone because of the simple fact that they have not been marketing Marvel Comics correctly as a whole here. With all of these different variants, with all of these different, different things that does not meet requirements for maintaining a IP. Like for example, we went what 4 or 5 months either in 2025 or 2024 where we got all of these Disney character covers on Spider-Man books. So you got Goofy as the Incredible Hulk on a Spider-Man book. So when you look
What?
at the book, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like that must be a special cover for the Incredible Hulk and this, that, and the other. I want to grab that. You buy it, you turn it around, it's like, oh, it's Spider-Man number 29.
It's not even the Incredible Hulk. You just
Hulk,
bought a
right? It's
Spider-Man
like,
comic, which of course ticks off people because it's like I was expecting the Incredible Hulk. I wasn't expecting Spider-Man number 99. I was expecting to get the Incredible Hulk. So it's not only it's misdirection, it's also what they used to refer to as it's shady marketing
mm-hmm.
because you are making people think they're getting one product and they're actually getting something else. And then your lawyers and unfortunately not enough comic book fans, I guess, would get up and say, hey, this this is misdirected advertising because I thought I was getting the Incredible Hulk and that what I got was
Right.
this.
And they will rely on, it's like, well, in previews, we said it was an Amazing Spider-Man, and we said it was Amazing Spider-Man over here. We said it was Amazing Spider-Man over there, but
But the
let's
thing
just say
is
if you don't have a pull list and you just walk into a comic book store.
and you're looking for a book and you see, oh, Goofy as the Incredible Hulk. that's interesting. I guess this is an Incredible Hulk. Is it going to be goofy as the Incredible Hulk? Or if it's an Incredible Hulk story, the fact that they used Goofy on the cover, I'm curious to see what that is. And then you open it up and it's like, okay, that's false advertising because
And
this is not the Incredible Hulk. This is Spider Man. I don't want to see an Incredible Hulk cover. I don't care who is portraying the Hulk when it's a Spider Man book. If you want
and
to show me Spider Man, put Goofy as Spider Man or put Goofy as Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider Ham. But do not make me think that this is an Incredible Hulk when it's not.
that was one of the key things because that brick and mortar store comic book owner do not have to tell you. He doesn't have to tell you that it's not a Incredible Hulk book. And
And he's and
they did that with several different covers. They had the Goofy as the Hulk. They had Mickey as Iron Man. They had Minnie as Captain Marvel. We're talking about Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. They had an Avengers one. They were just going through all these different titles and they were putting them on Spider-Man books to sell Spider-Man.
see and Disney knows that even if the fans get ticked and there's heat, they're not going to feel that heat. Marvel isn't going to directly feel that heat. The people taking the heat are going to be the local comic book shop owners.
Well,
They're
not
the
just
ones
the
who are
local
going to
comic
get
shop owners.
screwed.
It's like the comic book shop owners are going to lose business because.
That's what I'm saying. They're the ones who are going to get smacked.
Mhm.
The little guys are going to get smacked. And it's going to affect if there's anybody screaming about false advertising and stuff, they're not going to go after Marvel. They're not going to go after Disney. They're going to go after that local comic book shop and the owner and say, you sold me this one not and made it look like I was buying that. But the thing is, unless you get enough buyers from that shop to do it, you're not
Mhm.
going to do it in a way that's going to bring enough pressure on that owner because all the owner has to do is say, okay, fine, here's an Incredible Hulk. See you later, bye. You know, and he's like, okay, fine, here's an Incredible Hulk. Get out the door. Um,
Well, well, I have gotten you back into the whole convention scene, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of wish that sometimes you could make a trip back out to San Diego and be a part of those panels where you have those brick and mortar comic book store owners go into these Marvel and DC panels, and they let them have it. Oh my goodness, do they let them have it about all this dumb marketing stunts that they pull and everything. And all the comic book store owners really want is like, stop doing this nonsense and just write good stories that people want to read. When you're up here writing bad X-Men stories, bad Spider-Man stories, bad Batman story, those books sits on the shelves.
and you can't move them. And because of the material in a lot of those books, you also can't donate them. You know, if you've got comic books for kids, a lot of that stuff is above that grade level. You can't write it off on your taxes as a donation, so you can at least get part of what you invested to get those titles back.
Mhm.
So that's a loss. And if you're a big conglomerate, yeah, you can find a way to spread that out among other things. And what was a loss in one way can make you money in another. But if you're just some local comic shop owner, that loss every time you've got, you're ordering X amount of copies and only this many of them sell, which is why when you go sometimes to certain comic book stores and you ask, hey, I'm looking for, and they look like, no, we don't carry that, because they know that for the people who come in on a day to day and buy their stuff and have pull lists, um, those titles aren't selling. I'm lucky I have connected with First Aid, and he knows that if we order something, we're going to come and pay for it. If I go and ask, if I go to James and say, hey, I'm looking for, do you have that in the shop? He's like, nope. Me standing there, he will go on his computer and see if he can pull it up. Oh yeah,
Right.
so there's a copy of this and it costs such and such. And if I can afford it, it's like, yeah, I'd like that. Can you get it for me? He goes, yeah, I'll let me call you in a week or so and I'll let you know how it goes. And in a couple of weeks, hey Elaine, I got that book.
Mm.
Really? Okay.
It,
And some books
it's your big bag of money. Thank you.
yeah, sometimes we pay for books in advance because we have the money then because we were looking for it then. And other times it's like, well, we need to set this much aside because when James says he's got the book, we need to pay for it. Which is, you watch some people who come in and the staff knows them and they say, hey, I'm looking for, I came in and goes, yeah, here's your stuff. Because they know that when they bring that person their merchandise, they're actually going to pay for it.
Mhm.
Somebody walking in off the street, the staff doesn't know you, the owner doesn't know you, um, and you just start asking for stuff that they may not have because it doesn't sell that many copies, um, or they only had so many copies and they've sold out, so they have to special order a copy for you. Is the thing for them to do it. They have to go on. There's a thing they can do. They can go online. This is so much a copy plus shipping.
Plus shipping and maybe a little bit of handling depending on if you're a regular or not. If you're a
If
regular,
you're
you probably
regular,
don't have to do the extra. If you're not, then yeah, there's going to be a
they'll tell
little
you
bit
it
extra because they have to special order it.
because they don't know you. So it's like, yeah, that's going to cost you X and X plus shipping. Once they know you and they know that you're going to come by what you told them you were looking for, they tend to go, okay, we'll let you have, we'll just charge you the cover price or whatever. And then you pay for your book and you're gone. But, you get it. It's hard for them. They can't keep every book in existence. They can help you find a book. They may even send you to a competitor because they know so and so specializes in keeping this particular book, because sometimes owners might keep copies of a book because they're a fan of it.
Well,
And so they
I
may
won't get
have
on my
certain
soapbox
copies.
about that one. I won't get on my
Okay.
soapbox about that one because I have talked to so many different people and they get tired of me talking about that very aspect of, you know what? One of the major problems about comic book stores is that the owners of these stores love selling the stuff that they like collecting and not what people want to buy.
I will say on James's part,
No, he's
because
good. He's
yeah,
good. That's why I
it's
don't
like,
have no
I
complaints.
mean,
That's why I have no complaints with him.
Graham Cracker chaps my hide in so many ways. It's not funny. There are times when I'm going to smack the folks at
Well,
Graham Cracker.
I don't have a problem with graham crackers per se, only because when I was really shopping with them, I got to know the managers of certain stores. The owner, I could take him or leave him. However, he does have a couple of good people that works for him that is like James. Then there's others that are just like, I'm
You
like you.
just want
If I
to,
had a stabby, I would be like, is it really worth going to jail
yeah,
over a comic?
it's like, I would whoop your ass today, but I'm just not in the mood to go to jail. You are not worth the, it's funny when you look, I will now look at people out in the street and I see people out there acting fool and it's like, no, you're not worth the jail time.
Because
You know?
people keep forgetting. It's like people like you have heard of Patrick who owns Challengers, right?
Yeah.
Patrick used to manage at Graham Crackers. That's how I knew him. I knew him before he owned Challengers.
Well, James used to work for Graham Crackers. I don't think
Yes.
he worked, and that's why he left, because he was getting tired of the way they were treating fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so he
That's why I
said,
said it's only certain people who are managers there. There are some great managers there, and then there's other ones that it's just like on site. I would choke you in the sight of God,
like,
and it got to be like, don't do that, man. Like that is like you just don't understand.
see, my thing would be, it's a good thing I can't travel us back in time, right? Take you to one of those days when remember when the train that came around on Wabash, the minute it came over to Lake Street, it would jump off the track.
Yeah,
Go
that
the
little
train.
bit.
You know, the coming up. It for those of you who don't live in Chicago, what is now the green, brown, and purple lines, because the
Right.
pink line doesn't make that loop. Um, Whenever they came, whether going north or south, whenever they made that turn off off of Wabash coming on to Lake Street, it's a tight turn, especially the inside track, the one
And
that's
you
heading
rarely see it just
towards Wabash
up
off Lake.
and down. Every car up.
Up and down, up and down, up. It was like that old joke from Cheek when the man, the
Mhm.
dog in the back with the head going up and down, up and down, up and down. Those of us who had understood it, but it had and depending on the type of day, now they have to go very slow
Mhm.
in that section. It used to be CTA drivers thought they were in the
Rush
Indy
hour, you
5.
were never guaranteed coming around that corner. Like,
It was like the Indianapolis Speedway, the CTA drivers. I used to work as a day laborer um, some days after school when I was a freshman in high school. I used to work as a day laborer, which means I had to I went to DeSable because I lived in the South Side. I had to get on what is now the red line to go over to Manpower, which is on the north side. And there are times at late at night when the trains ran so fast in those tracks, they hummed. You'd be on the train now, like out of an old sci-fi horror film. They would be now they've made it so that they can't drive at those speeds anymore, especially if you're on an elevated track,
on an
because
elevated track, they cannot go no more, I think, than 30 miles per hour.
30 miles an hour. They
They
used
used to
to.
be able to go a lot faster than that.
Oh
And
my
it would scare
goodness.
the heck out of you if you get one of those one drivers and they hit one of those curves in the loop just right. It's
Woo!
like, oh my goodness, we're about to fall over.
You be don't do not. People used to sit in the middle of the train because, or the end, because you figure, well, the end of the train will probably go last, except sometimes they would get things a little confused back in the day. So because you had 3 or 4 different train lines running that Chicago Loop track, and
Mhm.
sometimes before the brown line would pull out, a purple line would come up and smack them from behind. Just wow. So yeah, we had chick
That's how
trains.
you know you was in rush hour, because I just thought about it. It's like, you know what? The fastest I have ever known a train go around the loop real quick is outside of rush hour, where there is no brown line. The
Nope.
purple line is outside of rush hour, so you have no more purple line express.
Yeah, because it used to be, and the purple line the purple line is the train that goes to Evanston, which
Hmm.
is far north. You get the purple line, you get off, and you take the Skokie Swift, which is the yellow line, to go further north.
Hmm.
Because the local Illinois Pacific lines that ran to I forget what it is they ran to. I think it was Milwaukee. They shut those down when the CTA took over, and then and the commuter lines. But getting on the train back in the day, you really had to be careful because, like I said, we have trains now, and you do have the subways, so you don't have as many trains running above ground. But at one point when I was a girl, what is now the Green Line, which would go all the way west to Oak Park and run all the way southwest because now it stops at Halstead, but it used to go much farther.
Further than that,
It
yes.
used to go much, much farther than Halstead. And then they shut it down. It now doesn't go any farther than that. And it doesn't go, it would go west of Halstead and then would go
All the way
east
to
up
University
63rd,
and
all the
University.
way up to the University of Chicago, all the way up to Stony Island.
Yeah,
It would
University is
take,
like it's like 4 blocks away from Stony Island.
and now it stops at I think it
Stops
stopped
at
at,
stops at Cottage.
yeah, stops at Cottage Grove. So they cut off a lot of those old lines, but when you got to the loop, you had what is now the green and the red line sharing tracks. You now have the orange line that shares parts of that track at Roosevelt. You have the brown and the purple lines, and they all kind of hit around that loop. Luckily, now the Roosevelt goes underground. The red line is underground by the time it gets from Chinatown to Roosevelt. It's now the subway, but you still have the green line stopping at Roosevelt, and then it gets downtown and that loop. And you've got, at least depending on the day and the time of day, you may have 5 or 6 trains all circling the same bit of track.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not paying attention and giving the right signals, that's why it used to be, riding trains downtown was kind of like you bet your life, because you never know. You never knew it. Once you got down Lake Street once you got past Clark on Lake, you knew you were safe.
No, where was it? No, you knew you were safe when you hit the curve going either north. I can't remember what the next stop after Clark and Lake.
Before Clark, you had State and Lake.
No,
You
after going north.
You've got Clark, and then after they pull out of Clark, all the northbound buses are going. All the trains are going to turn and go across the river as they.
Yeah, I can't remember the first stop that you get there, because once you get to that stop, that's when you knew you were safe. And then coming back out south. Once you got past Roosevelt,
once you hit Chinatown, once you got about halfway between Roosevelt and Chinatown, because half those trains would then turn and go on to the Dan Ryan.
Because people never realize that we call it the loop for a reason. It's a big loop that's in the middle of downtown. And back in the day, all the trains did not circle that loop. Certain trains would go one direction, come back around, and continue out south. Other ones would go one direction up north and circle around and go that way. I believe it was only the blue line, the purple line, and the brown line actually made the full complete circle around the loop to go back in the direction where they came.
Well, what we now have is the blue line ran on the expressways.
So that is correct.
And they were in the blue line. Once you got, I'm trying to remember, because North and Clybourne, once you got past Fullerton, no, not the blue line. I'm thinking the wrong line. Once you got Damon is above ground, and then I'm trying to figure. Damon is above ground. There are 2 others. There's one more stop past. No, Damon is the last above ground. Then it goes underground again into the subway, and then it hits north towards the loop, and then turns because it runs along the expressway. Is that the Kennedy? No, that's the Eisenhower.
Eisenhower, I believe.
Because it's the university.
It breaks. It breaks. The blue line is weird because on the south side it breaks into a fork,
and it runs down part of it runs down the expressway, and you get off to go to University of Chicago, and then go to the hospital. You go to the medical campus, and then it runs out towards Brookfield.
Right. You have one fork that goes to Brookfield, and the other one goes to
and the other one goes north, and it goes and then you've got the other side of it
that runs all the way out to northwest to O'Hare.
Yeah, runs out to
and runs
O'Hare.
along the expressway. The
It goes
that
it
one, that one's to Kennedy. So it's like what
it goes on the
part of it goes
Kennedy.
down the Eisenhower when it comes out south, and it runs down to Kennedy to go out north to
Yeah,
towards
because
O'Hare.
it's on the southern end of what's considered the west side of the
Right,
city.
it makes that weird loop underground. It's like a weird loop underground that it uses. It comes down the expressway, then it goes underground, and then it comes back out the other side underground to go down the other expressway to go out to the airports.
If you want to look at something that will make you pass out in like 35 seconds, come to Chicago and look at the transit map, not the short version of the transit map that they'll give you at depending on what train or bus are, but get
The
the
combined
full
transit now.
transit map and stare at the center of that map. And if you have, unless you're a Chicagoan and you're just used to it, about a minute 45 seconds, they will be trying to revive you because your brain will go,
They will get to the to where the loop is at, where we call the loop, and they will look at it. It's like, how does this work? How does this tray go all the way around, but yet does not come back out this way? Or
and it
how
goes
does
out.
this one goes around the part this way and comes out the other side? It's
The,
like it just doesn't make sense.
the interesting story of the loop is the guy who built the those train tracks, the elevated trains. He got $8 million from the city. He spent $3 million building those elevated tracks, and then took the rest of the money and skipped off to England.
Mm-hmm.
So that just tells you everything you need to know about Chicago transportation.
I'm just saying up here. It's like we got too many trains that makes that loop, but it's like only about like three or four trains that makes that full loop, and everything else just does some type of variation.
But the
The
thing
orange
is,
line does the actual physical loop.
the
The
orange line,
purple line and the brown line makes the
yes,
full actual loop.
the pink line does not. It makes a bit of a curve.
It,
You
it
have,
does it does not go down
yeah, you can't.
it does not go down the
It doesn't come up Quincy. No,
right.
that's not. It
No,
doesn't
no,
come
not
up over
Quincy,
on
but the Quincy is a stop. Quincy is a stop. I want to
Quincy is a stop, but it doesn't come down. What is that?
LaSalle. No, not LaSalle.
No, LaSalle.
It's not.
It's not
It's
Wabash.
not Whacker. It's not Whacker. It has to be.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but my brain is not functioning
Yeah,
as
we
it
know
needs
what
to.
street is. We know what street
Oh,
is in
we
between
can
these
take you to
these two blocks. We just can't think of it.
we can take you right over there, and
Right.
then walk, get you on the track and push you onto it. Okay, we can get you on the platform and push you on the track and go. I don't know what happened. They just
Yeah, because the pink line does not come down that portion of it, but it follows it pretty much all the way around and comes to the other side, but it just doesn't make the full loop like the
the
orange
orange
line does.
line goes out. For those of you who are ever coming in to the city or you need to get out of it, the orange line will take you to Midway Airport, and the blue line will take you to O'Hare. That's all you really need to know.
Yes.
Once you get downtown, that's all you need to know. The orange line will take you to Midway Airport, and the blue line will take you
You can do
to
all hair.
O'Hare. And if you're trying to get out, that's all you need to know. Unless it's a horror movie, and then I'd say don't walk through the subway because something might eat you, and not just the rats.
See, now you up here getting me on this horror movie track, and I was like, yeah, if you're in a horror movie in Chicago, don't take the red line.
Don't take the. Oh my goodness, no! Do
Don't take
not
the red
take
line.
the farthest.
And we kid about this a lot.
Yeah,
For those who have are not is not from the city, to give you an idea of what the red line is like, the red line is like a mobile mall at times.
yeah.
You could get your fruities candies, you could get your socks, you could get your batteries, you could get your babies, you could get t-shirts.
It used to be, and I don't know why, the city, and we know who mayor was that got rid of this. There used to be at from Jackson to Washington, the red line and the blue line stops. There were musicians. A lot of them had to like, and they quit it because they made it so hard for them to get the licenses to perform, because it got to
Hmm.
be there were always people performing at those subway stops. All the downtown subway stops had somebody doing something. And then and understand, they weren't attacking people, they weren't getting in anybody's way. You could get on and off your trains, they weren't bothering you, they would just sit there and perform. And understand, to get onto the platform you had to pay to get in.
Hmm.
So they weren't in there for free. Okay, they weren't committing crimes, they weren't adding to the problem. In fact, there are a lot of stops that were safer because they had the musicians there.
And because the
And then,
musicians were there, the police had to be there too because they had to make certain that they were safe. But
yes,
that
and
was the
then
other
they
part
got
of
rid
it.
of the musicians, and then the police left, and then those, because certain mayors just decided they didn't like the idea of musicians in the subway, but they paid tons of money for their girlfriend, their side chick, to do that BS up and down State Street that half the time it wouldn't work. I'm not
Again,
naming names, but you know who I'm
that was
talking
still
about.
much better. That's still much better than some of these so-called rappers on the red line train talking about, oh yeah, let me give you a couple bars, donation, 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 donation.
And like I said, I wasn't into the rappers on the train, but there
No,
were
but
some
they.
really talented people performing on those platforms.
Hmm.
Because if you weren't good enough, guess what? You get heckled. And so if
I
you
mean,
didn't want to be heckled, you had to have some talent. And there was, it used, because understand, the loop used to be pretty decent when you had when you used to have the homeless people, they had a program, and it was run by an organization. They used to print a newspaper called Streetwise. There were homeless people who acted as reporters, some of those who wrote and whatnot, and a lot of what the homeless people had to do, and you had to be registered with the Streetwise organization to do this. They would pick up these newspapers, and then they would sell the newspapers, and they weren't very expensive. I mean, it was like, they would ask for a base price, usually 50
right,
cents a dollar,
or wherever you could afford
or
at that
whatever
time.
you could afford. And I always gave money to the women because there were guys, and I think these guys killed the whole street fight. They would get a paper, they would buy a paper off someone and then stand in front of a Walgreens or whatever with this one copy of Streetwise. And then when you went to get it, hey man, this is my last copy. Can you let me keep it? And so they were scamming people. And then you get enough people mad, and
Well,
so it went from these guys who aren't really streetwise people scamming people to, oh, all the streetwise people were doing it. And it wasn't. They were making enough money so that at the end of the day, they would go to the organization's offices. The organization would take just enough to make sure they could keep the lights on and print out their papers and stuff. And they had deals with different companies,
mhm,
because I think Cranes was still printing at that point,
right.
um, where they could print their papers out for not a, they put out a decent paper and they could print it pretty easily without spending too much. It still had a quality paper. And the money that they earned, they could then there were still some cheapish motels and stuff around the loop where they made agreements. Hey, if you come in and we've got a spare room, you pay us X amount of dollars, you can take a shower, you can get a meal, and then
Mhm.
you're not on the street. There were a lot, when that happened, a lot of the problems in the loop began to fade because
Well,
suddenly you didn't have a ton of homeless people, and a lot of people who have been there were a lot of these people who had been out of work, and we're suddenly working again. And they could then say, hey, you know what, I've been working selling streetwise. The streetwise people would say, yeah, they're selling streetwise, this is what they do. And they were able to use that to move up into other jobs. But then, Walgreens and a couple of say, well, and they weren't standing in the entrance where you couldn't get past them. If I wanted to get into Walgreens, no streetwise seller was in. I'd have more problems with a Jehovah's Witness in my face than I had someone selling streetwise.
Well,
So
I'm not
it,
certain if you remember the campaign that they had here, because what you said about people scamming, that came to light to them. And that's the reason why when they say it's like whenever you buy a streetwise, always look for the badge, because they had an actual name
they
badge
had
with the
badges.
person's photo on it.
Yes. So they
And
were.
that's how bad the scamming got, where it's like they had to go the extra route to make certain like these people have a particular badge that they had to wear when they sell. If they had a whole bunch of those newspapers and they did not have their badge, they told people no, don't buy, because 9 times out of 10 they were scamming and this, that, and the other. And they made certain that their people were professional. They
And we
made certain, and I believe that was the reason why it fell off, because you don't see streetwise anymore.
And
I
it
don't.
broke my heart when you didn't, because I would always try. Now I don't run around with change on me if I
Mhm.
can help it. I don't like to carry dollars and stuff. But then if I was downtown, it's like, ooh, can I have an extra $1 or $2 on me so that I can at least help out a couple of streetwise vendors?
Mhm.
Like I would see a woman, it's like, hey there, and she's like, here, and it's like, how many do you have left? Okay, you know what? Just keep your paper, just take this, you be okay.
Mhm.
And you do that because it's like, okay, she's giving you she's not asking you for money, she's giving you this paper. It's not like you're giving her money and you're not getting anything. And you could see from just the people who were selling this, you could see the ones that were more successful in it. And I even talked to a couple and they said, yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of months, and they're helping me they're helping me set. They weren't just turning money in, but they were helping them set up bank accounts and things like that so that they
Getting
could,
their IDs and stuff where they could go and start applying for jobs, for
for
applying
jobs.
for
this
housing, applying for all this other stuff. And it was just like
this
you
was
never
something
know.
that was really working.
Hmm.
Okay, was it working for everybody? No, because there's always going to be that those people who, because of some physical or emotional disability, are not going to be able to utilize the program to the level that they could. But they were the guys who were running Steep Rights, because it was a couple of guys, they had been college students or something like that, and had
Hmm.
said, you know what, this is a problem. And and had started talking to people saying, what would help you more than anything else? And listen to what they said. They said, you know what, if we figure out a way to help them where they're doing something, if they feel like they're doing something of value, the people who see them on the street won't be like this, but like, oh, okay, because they're not just standing there, can I have $1 or whatnot? They're giving you something in return. It's an exchange. It's an exchange.
Right.
Um,
And they took it back to the old days of, having like the newsstand sellers. It's like
it
people
used
out
to
there.
be
It's
the
like,
little.
hey, I got the brand new issue of Streetwise, this, that, and the other. And the ones that were really good at it were the ones that would tell you about all the different articles that was in that particular edition that they had, because they was up here saying, no, I don't have this week's, I have last week's, but you need to read last week's because of this, and this.
Well, that, and
However, in
they
the new one,
also.
which I need to go and pick up some more on tomorrow, this one had that people who were really a part of it
But
knew what they were selling.
they were ad hoc street guys,
Hmm.
because I had seen people who would come into the city, buy one, and say, hey, do you know where? And they would say, oh yeah, I know that place. You go here, 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 you're there. Or do you know of any good restaurants? They knew where all the restaurants were. They
Hmm.
could tell you if you were looking for something and it was downtown, they knew about it. you
Hmm.
know Even if they couldn't get in, they talked to each other. The legit ones were talking to each other, and they realized, hey, if somebody looked lost, you look lost, do you need help? And they would say yes. I mean, it's like, oh, that's you go this way 2 blocks or whatever, you get there. I've seen it happen. And so they were not just selling something, they were also promoting the city.
Mm-hmm.
So people could say, "Oh, we're not afraid of Chicago homeless because they weren't posing a danger. Crime downtown went down because you didn't have as many desperate people. But like I said, you get those few idiots that for some reason will just say, "Ooh, let's look at this as an opportunity to get one over."
And those are the people that ruined them for them
And, and
because
and then ruin it for all these people who were really trying, because it's like so many people say, "Oh, well, they're homeless because they just didn't try hard enough." It's like these were
mm,
people who were homeless and they were trying, they were busting their asses, and then some idiots for nothing more than to grab a few cents and to get a gig. Okay, ha ha ha, look, I got one over on this idiot. um Screwed it up for them. And all I can hope is that karma gets on her bitchy side, and somewhere along the way they're paying for that. At least that's what I feel. Someone else may say, "Oh, Elaine, you're kind of cruel." It's like, yeah, life
no, but
life ain't
that's how
exactly.
karma works. You sow, you get what you sow sometimes.
And something that would give people their dignity, to take that from them. It's like I said, the street musicians. You had street musicians that used to, and really some really good musicians
See,
playing in those subway stations. And then because certain mayors, somebody who probably didn't even take the damn subway, made a complaint, the next thing you know, they couldn't
they once
get the
again the license and everything.
they
If
couldn't
people
get
don't
the licenses
understand,
because they made it so hard for them, and now we don't have anyone
people don't
playing
realize
music.
how hard it is to get a cello in a subway.
Hello.
That's not picking something like that up and carrying it up and down steps and escalators. It's not an easy task,
And you would
and
see
let
guys,
alone try to get on a bus or a cab with me.
there were guys with guitars, keyboards. There were little jazz combos. You got to the point where it's like, "Oh, do you want to hear? You want to hear a little jazz? Well, go ahead and pay that bus fare. Go ahead and get into the bus, or use your transfer and go down into this station, and you'll hear some jazz. You go over here, you're gonna hear classical music. That dude over there, he's a rapper, but he's very positive.
Mhm.
You got to know, by depending on what stop you went to, what you were like, and time of day, what you were likely to hear. You got to know some of these guys and girls, because like I said, these are really talented people. I met a guy a couple of times. He was making his own zine, and I bought a couple of copies
Mhm.
from him. I think I met him in February one year, and then about 3 or 4 months later, bumped into him on State Street again, and he had a new issue. It's like, "You got your new issue? Here's my money. Thank you." Because he was a brother doing something.
Mhm.
He wasn't cracking folks' head open. He wasn't trying to pickpocket nothing. He was creating a zine, and he was trying to get it out there. And it was like, you know what? I ain't got a lot of money, and I was just gonna blow this on a Polish and fries anyway. So let me help this brother out. You know, it's not that hard to do. These are the things that give cities their flavor and make being in those areas fun and enjoyable. These creatives are the lifeblood of a city or an area, because they add to that flavor. Yeah, you can have pretty buildings and stuff, but
But you're still not going to have to deal with his microphone and his amplifier talking about, if you're smoking, you're going to hell. if
he
you're
got
drink,
attacked.
if you're drinking, you're going. That's like that
Oh,
dude was one of the
the preacher
staples
man. Oh my goodness.
of the loop, especially on State Street. He was a staple on State Street. Anywhere up and down, I would say between Randolph and Jackson.
Yep.
He would find a spot. He would find a spot, And he would go into his whole I'm going to preach, I'm going to try to witness to people, I'm going to try to lay hands or whatever you need to do, and he would go non-stop.
Oh my goodness, that man was unstoppable. Even when you wanted him to stop, he was unstoppable. You know.
But to me, it's like, as much as I might get a laugh from him one a couple of times here, at least he was trying to do what he thought was good. And to see some of the people that was talking to him and just seeing his reaction to some of it, it's like, yeah.
He would get on my nerves at times. I will admit it. He would get on my nerves because um, he was rather sexist.
But
There are times he would talk about
he was very
he would talk about women in ways, and he would make what he felt was the evils of the world more the women's fault than the men. You know, and you didn't have to be wearing, you could be walking down the street in a skirt that came below your knee, and if he couldn't scream at you because you had a short skirt on, he'd say something because, oh my goodness, I can see your booty moving. It's like, it is maybe the problem is you looking a little too close to my booty while I'm walking past you. Keep your mind on God, keep your eyes off my booty.
That's the reason why I'm about to get ready to say, it's like he just had a way of demonizing women so badly that it was just like, wait a second, why would you say something like that if you're not really paying attention?
And the thing is I've
having a baby out of wedlock, you going to hell. It's like, what? no. It's like, he see a pregnant woman, he would like go to that and he'd be like, no.
You don't know if she's married or not. You don't know how she got pregnant. Maybe her husband died.
You don't know, but it's just like,
no. So
it's like he tried his best to do what he felt was right. So it's like you have to give him his props. But
nah,
all the stuff that he said and the people who came by, especially the people who challenged him, it's like it was a good laugh to watch. It was a good laugh to watch.
For guys, it was, but like I said, as a woman,
I saw some women that gave him some go and made him look silly.
Yeah, there were a couple of lesbian groups that definitely verbally gave, and used biblical. They would use scripture to do it, but it was like, like I said, when I was younger,
mm-hmm.
And you're just trying to make it from point A to B.
But that tells you how many generations he's been doing.
You're like, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. Oh my God, she just walking. Look at her walking down. I'm like, oh my goodness.
See, back then he had the megaphone. That was the stupid little megaphone. When he finally got that amplifier, I was just like, oh boy.
At least the megaphone limited his outreach. Once he got the amplifier, you could hear him down the other end of the block.
Not just the other end of the block, several blocks away,
and across the street. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh please. So we've demonized Disney.
Well, I thought we wasn't finished with the whole Marvel thing about how the so-called CEOs that's taking over just not having the respect for source material. You buying these IPs and not respecting their source material at all.
The problem is, we have too many people becoming CEOs. And I think part of it is a sense of jealousy. I think part of it is a sense of jealousy because they're not the creatives. They're not the artists. They don't write. They don't even edit or anything. And it's like you love making money off of it, but you also hate it.
Oh, just like when Disney bought Marvel in the very beginning. I forgot the name of the one person that they named as president of Marvel, and she was up here saying thinking about changing the name of the X-Men to something else because the most powerful X-Men that's in the book were women. And it's like, why we have to name it X-Men? I was like, flag on the play. You're
Just
about to
leave
do
it
something. You're about to
alone.
do something
Yeah.
really messed up, and you're going to have people land blasting you if you change the name of X-Men.
And it's like, okay, you've come in with an agenda that is nothing to do with the creative output of this organization and what it's built on. And I think that is really sad that you have so many people running these organizations now, and they have no creative experience. And they don't listen to they don't they want what the creatives do, but they don't respect them.
They don't respect it, and the only thing that they don't even respect the metrics or the numbers per se.
And
They look at these numbers and saying this is what we need to change, but yet you don't understand why you're changing it, and you don't understand the process that produce that result in the first place.
you're so focused on the end result, the what. You're not thinking of the why or the how.
Mhm.
And that is something that, creatives have been fighting for some time. Is that we have, as publishing, filmmaking, whatnot becomes, as it becomes more the way it's made, the way it's manufactured. The creative teams and the people who market it have become so far from each other. And like I said, in the old days, they used to make them. If you were trying to become a salesman for a company, a marketer, you had to spend so much time in the creative spot. That's why certain companies used to put their junior execs on the floor so you could see how something was put together. Even if sometimes, depending on the company, that you would have to work
Mhm.
on the production floor because they felt you couldn't sell something that you didn't have an understanding of. Just getting that
You
end
wouldn't have
product
the
in
same
your
type of
hand.
pride
And it's
behind it.
and
How can you sit up there and sell something that you don't even like?
and you don't believe in.
Hmm.
That's the part that gets me. These guys are not comic book fans. They don't believe in it. They don't these guys don't really care. It's like the whole thing about when you talk about the guys who buy comics not because of what's in the book, but just because a certain artist has drawn that alternative cover. And it's like, okay, you don't really care about what goes in the book. You just really care about that cover. And this artist is somebody who his work is selling for XYZ. And so you're buying these comics. And it's like, you know what it remind these are the guys, they don't have enough money to get into they don't understand the stock market enough to get into speculating on stocks. And so the comics have become their stock market,
And I hate that.
you know.
Those are the so-called speculators that I can't stand.
But they're the ones who unfortunately, um because you've talked about this before, you talked about this on Saturday.
Mhm.
They're the ones who unfortunately
They're
they're
the poor man's
pushing
art gallery.
they're pushing, and it's great. I have done, for those who haven't seen it, hold on, let me get her, you know because Joe made me do Storm #1. um and this is now a $45 book. I'm not selling it for less than $45. If you want this book, $45.
Well, hold on. If you're going to advertise, put it back up where I can make sure that people can see it in full screen view here.
Oh, okay. $45. you know because I sat there and colored the entire thing from the top of that one to the bottom of that. As you can see, it's all been drawn and colored in. Took me the Joe will tell you, I sat there at C2E2 and spent 3 days working on this puppy.
And she wanted to punch me out because I did a storm number one in one day.
It was better. He
No,
did
it
it. He
wasn't.
did it in one day, and it was better. And I'm sitting there still trying to work out. Okay, what are my base colors? Where are my shadows? Where are my highlights, and stuff? Because that's how I work, and I'm kind of slow. Courtney is going to kill me eventually because I was supposed to have her Harley Quinn Poison Ivy done. And then tax time came, and I was thinking about my taxes, so I was supposed to be working on Harley Quinn, and I screwed her face up, and now I got to redo the whole thing. So, she's been very sweet about it.
Mhm.
Probably because she just can't stand. They can't stand to hear me in the bathroom going wah wah
Mhm.
anymore. The tax time makes them as crazy as it makes me. But yes, we got through the tax time. I just have my state taxes to file, and I've got at least a week before I have to get those done, so I'm not dying.
Mhm.
But I just, it makes me sad to think that this is what we've come to, where you have it's one thing to you're an artist and you do a blank cover, you know. Um, but when the publishers purposely do a cover that somebody's that shouldn't of a book that shouldn't cost you more than $5 or $6, and they're and some guys blowing 300 of it because on it because and for one thing, because that artist isn't likely to get that money. You think, oh, this is that great artist and they've done this, and I'll buy this, and I'll buy this for this and for 50, $100, $200, and then hold on to it and get the whole set, and then in a year, and that's not how it works. In a year or so, it's not going to be worth $1,000. You know, it's one thing to get Golden Age comics, Golden Age Wonder Woman's maybe worth that if you've got something that's a 9 point something, or it's an issue that can't nobody find, and it's legible, and they've put it together so it's not going to fall apart the minute you take it out. Or you can't take it out, because if you do, you touch it, it'll disintegrate in your hand. um that's not how it goes. That's not how it goes. You're just paying that much money thinking you're going to make 10 grand or whatever on it. This is not that market. It isn't. And the sooner you children learn that, the happier everybody will be. Believe, because these artists, they're, they get paid a flat fee for those covers by the publishers, and they do not get paid extra money for every so many, unless it's somebody who's really up there, and he somehow got an agent or somebody to put it in his contract. um they're not going to get any, they're not going to get any extra money off that. They're just not. It's not, you're not putting the money in the artist's hand.
Mhm.
You then getting, you buy it for like 50, and then you sell it for 500 if you're lucky. um the artist isn't getting that money.
Nope.
The artist got a monthly salary.
Artists got no. Actually, artists got paid way before, and by the time they get settled in, like with the deal that I have with Greg Horn, all that money was up front.
But
And
still,
he
it's
got he get paid a boatload of money for me to buy out the copyright to the image that he did. I get to do whatever I want with it. He gets one big bag of money.
but Marvel, on the other hand, is not giving all those artists one big bag of money. You might
Well,
get.
not at one time, but it's more along the lines like say for a cover they get like this one chunk of change here for that one cover, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
Now
what
if
I'm
you work
saying.
on actual pages and stuff, then you get
You get extra money.
you get a package deal for the amount of pages that was done
Yeah,
and approved. But
but what I'm saying is, you might go and buy something
mhm,
that Marvel has put out because they know you're going to pay top dollar because such and such artist
mhm,
work is featured on that cover. that artist has already been paid. Marvel is getting that.
He's been paid and probably already got his comp copies, and that's it.
Yes, and that's it. Marvel, he's not making any more money. Marvel is making that money.
Nope.
The dealer will take a small cut of it, but the majority of that money, the lion's share, is going to Marvel. So you're not putting the money in the artist's hands.
Now, if you have, like you said, if you have a good agent, Marvel or DC would pay you X amount of money for the image, and then you will still have rights and privileges to do prints and all the other stuff where you can make your money after that.
Yeah, but when you consider that you're probably not going to go where that artist is to buy, because that means you're going to have to go to a con, and you're going to have to check to see if the artist that you're looking for is in Artist Alley or in the featured area at that con, which means, and nowadays, C2E2, you know, it's like a basic ticket at C2E2. It's like, what, $100?
For one day is close to $60 to $70.
Okay, so it's $70.
But for the whole weekend, we're like $250, $300.
And understand, that's just the entrance fee. Okay, are you going to go to San Diego because the artist that you're following is such a big artist that you're only going to find him at either San Diego or New York or Emerald City, or if you're lucky and you got the money to go there and you got someplace to stay, they're going, they might go to England. Okay, they may go to London, or they may go to, I think there's London, there's Edinburgh, there's a couple of comic conventions in the UK. They're not cheap.
Nope.
You got to get there.
Over there is not cheap.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, what it would take, what you would have to put out to go meet that artist and get them to sign it, especially if they're at a state where you think, if I buy this cover for $75, $100, I'm gonna make $1,000, $500, $1,000 off of it, but I need to get him to sign it. Guess what? You're gonna have to put in. It may cost you as much as you paid for the cover. You still got to get into that place. You still got to get to that place. Is this place where you live? No. Well, guess what? Now you got to get on the bus, because you got to get on a plane, because you don't want to pay to get on the train and take the Amtrak or whatever to where that is. By the time you get that signature, so you're guaranteed that $500 to $1,000 if you're lucky. You spent almost twice as much of that just to be able to get there, and you gotta hope that the artist that you want to sign it is in the butthole. So that when you get there and ask him, and they're sitting there going, you want me to sign this so you can sell it for how much? The artists are not stupid. They do not live in a bubble. They know what's happening in the market. The best they can hope for is get a good lawyer or agent who can get them a better cover deal of whatever, so that they can, ask for a little more money up front for their work. But and even Marvel isn't going to make that much money off of it, because whoever you're buying that cover for $1,000, or you hope you sell it for $1,000, are you going to send any of that money to Marvel? I don't think so. It isn't. You would do better to take some business courses and then learn how to play the stock market. That would be better, because this is not the place to try. You cannot. This is something that you can't turn. This is not the stock exchange. Marvel may be traded on the stock exchange, as is DC,
as a company, but
not their individual properties.
Their properties work a little bit different, and that's the whole thing here, because everything is not a winner. Everything should not be overly speculated. And just because an IP got option for like a movie or a TV show or a cartoon does not mean that those people who watch the TV, cartoon, or movie is going to come and read the book.
Or just because issue 25, you know, was a big issue because they got so and so to do the art, that doesn't mean that that 1 through 30, 1 through 24 are all winners, or 26 on are all winners. If
Hmm.
you're trying to buy up an entire run of a book, okay, because I understand that's something people are doing. You're trying to buy up the entire run of a book.
That's
Um,
sellable. That's sellable because you got the beginning to the end, and people
yeah,
want to have the beginning to the end of any
provided
type of
it's a
series.
title that is very popular.
Hmm.
If it's it, because you can think, okay, this issue of this title sold XY, but then something happened. The guy who edited it got fired, and now the new editor is coming in, and their style of doing things and the creative team's style of doing things have to gel. And the first couple of months, that's not going to happen, especially if the people who were working under that editor really liked working under that previous editor. They're going to look at the other editor, even though it's not necessarily their fault, as you're here to invade our nice little creative bubble. And so the first month will just be them kind of figuring out how to do what they do without trying to kill each
Hmm.
other. Okay. It'll take a couple of issues to get things on track. And usually, if you were going to phase out one editor for another, you wouldn't do it like this. You would start bringing that newer editor on
Hmm.
and say, hey, work with this team for a while so that the older editor could help the new editor adjust and the creative team adjusts. And so the new editor gets to see how the old editor does it. And then when the old editor's gone, they'll say, hey, I'm going to make, I'm thinking we can make these changes, these changes, these changes. And you realize it's a give and take when
Hmm.
it's a real creative atmosphere. Editors do not sit there and go blah 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 blah, and then the writer and the colorist, the penciler, the inker, the letterer, like, okay, we'll just go there a little. This is a team. When you
Hmm.
screw up with a team, you screw up with the book. And and there are times, if you know what to look for, you can see in certain books where, okay, this is off, and you realize, okay, what was going on when they were making this, when this book could go, oh yeah, that's when this happened. You can see it in, I mean, the more professional groups, they
You
try
can
to.
see where one guy was drawing these pages here, and then you get to page 18. It's like, why did somebody draw the pages for 18? What happened? And then you have to think about, oh, they must have had to pull the pencil
They,
or the ink or whatever, and something changed, and the editor had to make it a command decision.
you know so this is not the market you want to speculate for. Art, I mean, we saw this. I used to follow the New York art scene because I was a gallery artist way back in the day. I did showings, I went to parties. I was one of those young, bubbly things that people used to like to have around because I had some talent and I used to look good in a dress. And I studied up on what was going on in New York. And there's a reason why, after a while, the New York art scene just kind of started fading out. The Chicago art scene tried to become the New York art scene and never quite made it, because this isn't something, everybody thinks they're going to come in and start making the money of a Picasso. But the problem is, Picasso wasn't making that money at his youth. Toulouse-Lautrec, if you find a Lautrec poster, yeah, it'll cost you 20 grand. But at the time Lautrec was alive, he just barely made enough to pay his rent, get tissue paper to wipe his butt, and afford, if he was lucky, a croissant and a coffee. Those guys weren't. this is not a speculative sport. What we do, and artists who are in favor, and now we see the YouTube artists. You know, there's a whole if you there's a whole new point of art that and we're not talking AI. I'm talking these girls and guys who
Who still
they
drawing
are
on paper and pencil and everything traditionally, and they do it live. They do it speed drawings and all the other stuff.
and you know, and they draw tradition. Some of them are traditional, like Furry Little Peach. She does a lot of traditional. She does a combination of traditional and digital. But then there are people like Happy D, who's an oil painter, Danica Sills. There are a lot of great artists out there, but they're known because they're on YouTube. They're not bothering with galleries. And or they're getting gallery shows. Jacqueline De Leon gets a lot of gallery shows, but she also gets because someone at the gallery saw videos that she did on YouTube. She's now doing murals and stuff in Long Beach and other places in Northern California because they've seen her on YouTube. Very Little Beach is making money, but because they've seen her on YouTube. Mark Willie's book sell because they see he started in that stuff, got his first books out, realized he could do a lot, he could get better traction on YouTube. And now his books, you know, his first printing are sold out before he's even finished the books because he's been talking about them on YouTube. Why am I helping these people who never know that I'm not getting no money for it?
But it is that time here. I know it's almost
that time
when your stomach is rumbling and everything.
I need to eat, and I'm going to make myself some scrambled egg sandwiches, and then I'm going to go. So you want to sign me out?
Yep, that's.
Thank you to this for this episode of Elaine just went off the rails again.
No, it wasn't Elaine went off the rails. It was shop talk with Comic Book Spectrum. That's what it really was. Shop talk with Comic Book Spectrum.
Comic Book Spectrum. Okay, I'll take that. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you. You are amazing. If you tuned in to the replay, thank you. You're amazing. I'm Elaine Haygood. You can find me at my website, lenscaponline.com. If you go to the bottom of that first page, there is a reach out, talk to us thing. You can put a message in there. It goes directly to my email. Nobody else sees it. I'm a little weird that way. I'm also here on YouTube, Elaine Haygood. Look for me here on YouTube. I've got 36 different videos. Getting ready to work on getting some new ones out as I've started to get book 2 of my graphic novel series. God, I'm tired. The Coming of Nighttime book 1 is done. I still have copies. I've got at least 10 to 12 copies from the C2E2 batch that we did not sell. If you're interested, go to my website, reach out. Find me at Facebook, Elaine Haygood. There are so many places you can find me. LinkedIn. Believe me, I'm around. I'm like a bad hooker. But you can find me.
I'm so glad that the TVMA is still up.
Find me if you're interested in the book. I have not put a sample up on the site, but there are 2 comics as well as the first chapter of my first novel, The Enslaved, is on the website. There are 2 short comics, Whale and another one, that are on the website that you can peruse. You can't download them, but you can look at them on the site and see them and say, oh, okay, she's done other work. So I'm around. Hit a sister up, because I got bills to pay and I could use the money. Anyway, y'all take care. Catch you next week. See you later. Bye.
And that brings us to the point where Comic Book Spectrum is brought to you by Plasma Fire Graphics. If you need a cover for your next novel, graphic novel, comic book, or whatever, hit up Jeffrey Ace at Plasma Fire Graphics. Why? Because you wanted an award-winning artist who have won several Pulp Factory Awards to do your cover. And if you don't believe me, believe this video.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
You see what he brings to the table? That brings people to your table when he does your cover. So why don't you hit up Jeffrey Hayes at Plasma Fire Graphics at plasmafiregraphics.com or his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. Now, for those who have really been paying attention to this show, we have our QR code up there for CGC Studios, just in case you want to check out the website here. We're probably going to have one for LensCap and for Cliff for whatever projects that he does here. As far as I'm concerned, I'll be back here Saturday with another episode of From the Desk of the Small Press Publisher. We got brand new comics to go over here as far as new comic book pickups for the week. As far as the main discussion, I still don't know because, like I said, we made this into shop talk for this week here, so I don't know if there's going to be anything shop talk related for next week's show. So we might have some more controversial things to think about or something to that magnitude where we get you, the audience, involved into our interactive show here. So until next week, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike our founder for Comic Book Spectrum, Brian K. Morris, I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. Catch you here next week, and we are out. Bye.